Brett Stevens in the Times talked about Cochrane. Put that on the screen. The most rigorous and comprehensive analysis of scientific studies conducted on the efficacy of masks for reducing the spread of respiratory illness, including COVID-19, was published last month. Its conclusions, said Tom Jefferson, the Oxford epidemiologist who is the lead author, were unambiguous. There is just no evidence that masks, make any difference, he told the journalist Mayan Demasi, full stop. But wait, hold on. What about the N95 masks as opposed to the lower quality surgical or cloth masks? Makes no difference. None of it, he said. Well, what about the studies that initially persuaded policymakers to impose mask mandates? They were convinced by non-randomized studies, flawed observational studies. How do we get beyond that finding of that particular review?
Insert flame emojis around the man, the science himself, Anthony Fauci's face right now. How do you get past that? Oh, well, here's the thing. Trust me, I've got an answer. Let's hear what it is.
Yeah, but there are other studies, Michael, that show at an individual level for individual, when you're talking about the effect on the epidemic or the pandemic as a whole, the data are less strong. Yeah, but there are other studies, Michael, that show at an individual level for individual, when you're talking about the effect on the epidemic or the pandemic as a whole, the data are less strong.
Right to jail, right away.
First of all, I mean, does everybody realize...
Brett Stevens in the Times.
Pause it here for a second. Look at, I don't know what this guy's name is on the left, the CNN reporter. Look at his face. His face looks like he cannot believe the load of crap he sees coming out of Fauci's mouth. Look at these eyes. This is like...
Yeah, but there are other studies, Michael, that show at an individual level for individual, when you're talking about the effect on the
Let's hear this.
epidemic or the pandemic as a whole, the data are less.
Look at that face. I cannot believe the verbal diarrhea that I hear coming out of Mr. Science's mouth himself.
Strong. Yeah, but there are other studies.
Oh, there were other studies. Yeah, but there were other studies. I'm sorry. Which ones? The ones that were just debunked or the ones that were just demonstrated to have been bad studies? What do they call them? Observational? Anecdotal? Bad? Yeah, but there are other studies. You see, the thing about the mask, when you mandate it for society as a whole, is it doesn't work for society as a whole, but on the individual level, there have been studies that show that sometimes for the person themselves, it works, but it doesn't work for the data as a whole because it's not... He's a very, very, very bad man, Fauci. These are policies, these were studies that were relied on to justify one-size-fits-all policies. Okay, they were wrong about the masks, but on an individual level, sometimes it makes a difference to the person, but doesn't work because the data for the epidemic as a whole are not so good. All right, is that going to be the same thing for the jibby jab? On an individual level, if you're an 85-year-old morbidly obese person with 3 underlying comorbidities, then maybe there's a little bit more benefit than risk. But we applied it as a mandate to everybody, including 16-year-old kids who already had natural immunity from the Rona itself. Yeah, but no. And now, by the way, you see how they have to backtrack and walk it back while maintaining the lie? Because if they admit that they were wrong, they have to admit that they were lying. CTV News is reporting this as well. Here, let's just see. Don't take my word for it. Is it this one? Oh, yeah, it's right over here. Yeah, another tweet from CTV News Ottawa. Thank goodness. Hey, maybe some of them are finally reading the studies, although people were saying this from the beginning, that the studies were bunk. Ontario Ministry of Education will not mandate mask wearing when students return to class this fall. Education Minister Stephen Lecce has confirmed. Oh, by the way, I just do a quick Google search of some of the crap that CTV News ran. Twitter, this is back in the day. Well, I didn't get the date on this one. Twitter has already banned some COVID-related misinformation in December, including falsehoods about how the virus spreads, whether masks are effective. Remember, because that was disinformation 2 years ago to suggest that masks were not effective, and now you got Fauci admitting it. But, on an individual level, sometimes it might work. What do we see here? This was from another CTV News article. The truth. Federal regulators last month revoked their authorization of the drug as an emergency treatment amid growing evidence it doesn't work and can have a deadly side effect. Even if it were effective, it wouldn't negate the need for masks and other measures. This was when they were trying to justify prohibiting certain alternative treatments. It wouldn't negate the need for masks, which don't do anything, but on an individual level, it's like Providence, Rhode Island, CTV News article. As the world races to find a vaccine and treatment for COVID-19, there is seemingly no antidote in sight for the burgeoning outbreak of coronavirus conspiracy theories, hoaxes, anti-mask myths, and sham cures. This is CTV News, the one now that's reporting how the universities aren't going to mandate the masks because we now definitively know what many were saying from the beginning, they don't work. And of all the bizarre and myriad claims about the virus, those regarding masks are proving to be among the most stubborn. Hey, CTV News, do you get labeled misinformation and disinformation now? Oh, no, because you're keeping up with the science, eh? Now we know what we were banning before as speech, calling it misinformation, disinformation, censored off of the YouTubes, channel strikes. You spouted anti-mask disinformation. You can't have the discussion then. Had we had the discussion then openly, uncensored, we might have come to this new realization 2 years ago. And it's not just that they didn't work. By the way, if only they were not effective, it would have been one thing. And this is my ignorance back in the day. Is like, well, okay, fine. Even if the jibby jab doesn't, do everything they say, well, how much harm can it do? My goodness, do I know the answer to that now? Even if it were just a question of the masks not working, fine. They did damage. Developmental delays in children, especially special needs children. Maskne, cavities, fungal infections, plastics being found in the lungs of humans for the first time ever. Potentially toxic masks. If only all they did was nothing, it would have been bad enough to have been lied to by these scientists, by the media that propped up these scientists, that stifled free speech. If they did only nothing, it would be bad enough. But they did more than nothing. They actually did harm. Oh, but that's misinformation, disinformation. Viva's a conspiracy theorist, except they're now just confirming the conspiracy theorists were right 2 years too late. What's up?